Landon became curious as to why Santa hadn't showed up in Baymard for the past 2 months now. Was he sick? Did any impending crises befall him? Your Highness, the young master is fine. Actually, King Carmelo of Corona should have stepped down from the throne by now. That's why the young master wasn't here personally. Landon was shocked. He willingly stepped down from the throne in this era? Landon couldn't help but give 2 thumbs up to the old man. After finding out about the traditions and customs of Corona from Santa's subordinate, he had to admit that it was way better than what his bastard father was doing. Landon could also somehow understand why Santa's father would be disappointed in his son, not wanting to serve as a knight. Who wouldn't want to serve such a king? But to some extent, he also understood Santa's own way of thinking. Santa just hated rules, and from the looks of it, Santa's own father was even stricter than King Carmelo when it came to rules. If King Carmelo helped the poor out, they would say it's an act of charity. But when Santa worked in the bakery, he became a laughing stock in his city. From what Landon understood, no one really laughed at Santa in a mocking way. They were just teasing him. But in Santa's father's eyes, it seemed like real insult. So the problem only lied in Santa's family. He was also curious to know which son would take over the throne from King Carmelo. But too bad that Santa's subordinate had no clue as well, since he left 2 weeks before the trials had even begun. Once the ships headed out to sea, Landon decided to settle all the newly arrived citizens. Amongst the group of people, there were 312 children, 183 seniors, and 527 people who volunteered for the army. Again, Landon had received 7 eccentric senior citizens that also wanted to prove their worth to him. As soon as Landon saw them walking hurriedly towards him, he knew. He just knew that they were cousins to the 3 musketeers. After spending more time with the 3 old men, how could he not recognize their cousins, the Fantastic 7? Before they even got closer to him, Landon immediately ordered the knights to carry all surrounding stones around the area and dump far away from the beach. And his guess was right. As soon as they arrived, they stared, yelling out very loudly, "Where are you taking those stones to? Hey, didn't you hear us?" Undersir. Among the 7 were 2 women who kept telling Landon about how they used to wrestle men in their cities. According to their story, they had even wrestled and won against their city lord and all his knights. Of course, he believed that women could actually win if they trained hard as well. But for some reason, he felt that these particular women were lying to him. He would rather believe that human beings can chew molten larvae than to believe their stories. They also bragged about having enough strength to take down his entire army in a single day. Bravo, Hercules, bravo. Landon kept trying to stop himself from rolling his eyes at them. Did they really think that he was foolish enough to believe their tales? Sure, he looked like a 15-year-old kid, but still. Come on. He also succeeded in convincing them to join the 3 musketeers in gardening. It was better to let the 2 groups compete with each other on who was stronger than whom. Actually, he was looking forward to it as well. He might have to buy popcorn from the system and watch through his system monitors. If he was being honest, Grandpa Willow and his friends made for a hilarious reality TV show. He had been watching them whenever he got bored. Truly entertaining. It looked like the palace would be even rowdier than before. There were also 11 senior citizens who couldn't walk well due to either leg injuries or other health problems. Immediately, Landon requested for 5 open-roof loading trucks to come to the coastline region. He needed 5 because he figured that since he was going to carry the injured people in them, might as well carry all the other seniors too. Once the trucks arrived, the new citizens were shocked. What was this? Why was this carriage so cool? The children were also excited, as their eyes shot wide open. The Fantastic 7 started bothering Landon about the trucks. Brat, better speak up now. Are we going to have our own carriages in future? If you give me one, I will immediately engage you and my daughter together. Sure, she's 42, a widow and older than you, but what matters is love, and that carriage. Puyi! Don't listen to him. I have a younger daughter who is 39 years old, way younger than 42. Don't try to cheat us. Will we really have one? HMMP. I'll tell you what, I used to ride these types of carriages when I was younger. I'm not that easy to impress. Landon could really feel a headache coming on. Why would I want your daughters? Do I look like a man who's into women older than my mother? Landon quickly looked at the soldiers, who were gently aiding the other senior citizens board the trucks. As they were boarding, Landon told the driver to go slow and steady when on the roads. There were several stones on the roads, so it was better to go at a pace that wouldn't bother those injured seniors. Landon also made sure that each truck had at least 5 soldiers on them, just in case of any accidents happened along the way. As the trucks started moving again, the seniors on the truck kept shouting, pointing, and commenting as they observed their surroundings. Ah! Look over there. What is the structure? Look at those beautiful flowers. Do you think that we will see wild animals on our way? As Landon heard their comments, he almost lost his balance. Do you guys think that you're on a safari trip in Africa? What wild animals? Forget it. Once the group containing the Fantastic Seven left, Landon continued on with his duties. He assigned 20 more caretakers to look after the children and 158 stable workers for the horses. Now, Landon had 5,600 people available for work. He decided to send 300 workers to the food industry, another 300 as caretakers for all the animals, 300 to the alchemy industry, as well as 700 to the construction industry. The remaining 4,000 would work in actual construction. The animals were placed in the stables of the food industry. One should know that before the industries existed, those estates were used as residence for the barons. Each baron had at least 4,500 knights under their care, and these knights in turn had their own horses. So there were a lot of indoor house stables at the back of every estate. Landon decided to have all the animals stay in those indoor stables for now. Since he was expecting these animals, he had previously requested for the Department 6 of the construction company to build metal bars for each animal shed. He had also brought in a lot of hay and metal trays for the chickens. For the food industry, Landon gave them the task of creating butter and taking care of all the animals as per his instructions. For the entire month, this was their only task. The alchemy industry, on the other hand, needed to focus on soap making for the entire month. The construction industry would also focus on furniture making and porcelain and marble making. Although Landon wouldn't build a gigantic villa as a house, he still wanted the houses to capture the modern essence of beauty. That's why Landon had decided to make porcelain and marble. He needed porcelain floor tiles as well as marble ones. These materials could also be used in making breakable plates, teacups, teapots, and so on. Both marble and porcelain could also be added to furniture, house pillars, and wallpapers to create beautiful designs. Marble in particular could also be used as aggregates for making cement blocks, so Landon thought it was the perfect time to make them. Since the raw materials were available, why not start now? He carefully explained the process as he handed over an exercise book containing a detailed description on the manufacturing process to Tim. Feldspar, or clay mineral or in sand, were used to create porcelain. The raw materials were to be crushed, mixed, and passed through a screen or filter to remove any oversized particle. From there, water would be added and a clay-like product formed. The clay should resemble all those clays in sculpting classes. The workers were to then mold different cups, plates, and so on. The floor tiles were to be spread flatly, using only very thin layers of clay. Once molded, everything would be sent to the fire. And at the end of the day, Landon expected them to also paint and create their own designs on the cups and plates. Who knows, they could make a teacup saying, "Father of the Year" on it. Landon wanted the workers to use their creative imaginations, so he set up a competition. At the end of the next month, the top 3 designs would win several prizes from him. He wanted to stimulate their minds and encourage their own personal growth within Baymard. As for those in charge of furniture making, they were to get the already cut planks and wooden boards from the wood cutting department and start making bed frames, chairs, tables, and so on. Finally, he was left with his 4,000 construction workers. His thinking was simple. When building a house, it was essential to hook up the water, electricity, and heating before construction. He could do it later, but that would result in more work. If Landon did it after building the houses, he would need to break down the house walls and floors later on, just to install underground pipes and sewage systems. That was just double work. Before constructing houses for the citizens, he had to make sure that these three industries existed: water and sewer treatment plant, thermal power plant, electricity, and central heating plant. Previously, Landon had 6,000 workers that created heavy machines like tractors. Now that Baymard had over 800 different types of heavy machines, Landon decided to withdraw 4,500 out of those 6,000 and add to them with the new recruits, leaving only 1,500 to continue making the machines. Now, he had a total of 8,500 workers ready for construction. The old workers were now considered as veterans. They knew how to use all the tools and machines, as well as perform quick calculations. They also understood the concept of inches, yards, and so on. It would be easier for them to teach the new recruits while on the job. That's why Landon had put them together. Each old worker would guide and help at least one new worker, since they were almost even in number. Previously, when Landon was teaching the construction workers how to use the machines, they had practiced and already leveled and prepared all the construction sites for building. They used the excavators to dig up and clear all trees and leaves within the area. The construction site that was filled with trees and bushes was now bald. They also made trenches for pipelines around the perimeter of the sites, as well as trenches that would connect all industry pipelines together. The 3-meter-wide gigantic pipes had been wheeled into the construction site by the use of lowboy machines. They were basically like those trailers you see in airports that carry luggage to the plane, except this one was for construction purposes. It had no walls, no roofs, just a floor on wheels. Of course, it had several chains to prevent the pipes from falling. They were also good for transporting giant trees from one place to another. With everything organized, it was finally time to start building actual structures. Landon chose to begin with the water and sewage treatment plant. This plant would have two main functions: purifying seawater and treating sewage. Landon was sick and tired of using buckets and pit toilets to do his business. As a modern man, how could it not bother him? It was really annoying to have the young butlers in his castle carry the buckets out every day. Honesty, Landon thought that this was human abuse. But the people didn't seem to mind, as if it was nothing at all. Once, he wanted to take out his own bucket of sh***, and one of the young butlers started crying, thinking that Landon wanted to fire him. What the F******? Dude, I'm trying to help you, all right? He had already made up his mind that next month he would definitely make pulp and paper. In this era, people washed their asses with either a communal sponge on a stick, reusable rags, corn cobs, old ropes, or their hands. It was so disgusting. Every household would share the same rags or sponges with each other after going to the toilet. As for royalty, after using the sponge on a stick, the butler would clean it up and the next royal family member could use that same sponge. The same thought process went for reusable rags. In fact, there were really few sponges around, that Landon was sure that somebody else had used his sponge. He just chose not to think about, because the last time he did, he kept puking all through the night. To make matters worse, the system was a scammer when it came to toilet paper. How could 3 squares of toilet paper cost 20 development points? Was he using gold to wipe his ass? Landon really thought that the system was intentionally making things difficult for him this time. At this point, he couldn't help but blame Truckkuin for seriously killing him back on Earth. If the truck hadn't ran over the red light hurriedly, he would still be alive up till this day. Before dying, he had seen the shocked look on the driver's face, so he knew that it was an accident. Since he didn't want to really blame Driver Kuin, the truck was at fault. Sigh Truckkuin. In this era, the people weren't too big on hygiene, so they didn't mind sharing the same toilet rag or sponge with each other. He had been painstakingly waiting for the time when he would succeed in toilet paper making. On that day, he would probably dance Gangnam Style in his bedroom. For the water and sewage treatment plant, Landon needed several buildings and pipes in place. Since he decided to treat seawater, Landon needed 3 gigantic pipelines to be placed underground from the sea in the coastline region to the plant in the lower region. 2 of those pipelines would be used daily, while the other one would be there as backup, should in case the other 2 needed maintenance or fixing. All the water would pass through the pipes and head toward a 300-square-foot building, which should have different filtering equipments used for filtering out any sand particles or hard rocks from the water. After filtering, the water would still go through several buildings that would focus on filtration and chemical addition, until the water is entirely clean. All the tanks needed would be the same size as a regular swimming pool, except for the chemical storage tanks. Landon planned to build these tanks like how one would build an aquarium seal show or a regular swimming pool. There would be safety bars and waist-high iron fences around each pool that wouldn't allow people to come close or touch the tanks carelessly. For water and sewage treatment, it was industrially better for everything to be eye level. Several chemicals would also be added to the water treatment process. Chlorine, for example, would be used for disinfecting the water, and lime for raising the water's pH level, hence reducing corrosion in the pipes. As for the sewage treatment, Landon realized that he needed 11 more buildings within the plant. Wastewater would be collected from toilets, drainage pipes, homes, schools, industries. In fact, from everywhere. So of course they needed their own buildings and treatment tanks. Landon also realized that he needed more buildings that would host the workers' daily necessities. Landon decided to adopt the standard industry setup for a power plant back on Earth. Hence the industry would have two sectors. Before anyone could pass through the main gate, security would check if they were authorized or not. The first sector would immediately follow after the main gate. This sector would have 6 buildings for staff and office personnels, 1 infirmary building, and 1 security building. These 6 buildings would have staff and meeting rooms, large locker rooms for both male and females, a large kitchen, a large cafeteria, bathrooms and showers around the buildings and equipment rooms. Some of the buildings would be 4 stories high, while some would be less. There would also be a wall and a gate dividing the first and the second sectors. Only authorized personnel, workers or engineers, will be able to go to the second sector. The second sector would have the fire department building, control tower, chemical laboratory building, engineering office building, the production vessels, chemical storage building, and another security building at the gate of the second sector. Landon wanted the plant to be professional. He couldn't allow people to just walk in and out as they liked. The security had to be tight. Only those with badges, access cards, or passes could move in and out of the plant. And even those who worked in Sector 1 couldn't pass through Sector 2 as they liked. That's how it was done on Earth, and that's how he was going to sew it here. No room for errors. One had to be like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible to get into the plant unauthorized. Heck, what if someone wanted to steal important documents in the offices? Or blow up the plant from within? What if an enemy wanted to steal his technology? Or poison the workers? Security was a must. He also needed a car park that would be the same size as that for Walmart or any large shopping center. The car park should also have reserved spaces for the company buses, assigned for picking and dropping workers to home or anywhere within the various bus routes. He wore his safety gear and headed out to the construction site. It was 9 a.m. time to work. Since the workers came to work already wearing their new safety gears, he had them offload the trucks that contained sand, cement blocks, cement bags, aggregates, steel rods, ladders, and all other equipments and materials needed for construction. Before Landon could explain the first step to them, the old workers had already taken out their jotters, as well as their pens. Landon smiled while nodding agreeably. They learned so fast. Within this time, the old recruits had learnt to write down important information in their jotters. Since Landon wasn't there to do everything for them anymore, they started writing down important information, so that they didn't have to go through several experiments again. The new recruits were confused about what those stick things, pens, were. And did they just see their colleagues take out tiny manuals? The new recruits started wondering if Baymard was actually super rich for normal workers to afford manuals. Mind you, people didn't have exercise books in this era, since paper was seen as a national treasure. Paper was only used to make manuals, textbooks, or important historical records or empire rules. But to allow someone to waste paper just like that was really something else. How could ordinary workers afford paper, talk less of manuals? Landon amplified his voice using the system, and also demonstrated several times on how the foundation of buildings were to be done. He spent 1 hour, repeatedly showing them what to do. And when they finally got it, he broke them up into groups and assigned them to each building and each large tank on the site. Since those tanks were the size of regular swimming pools, their base needed to be made out of concrete as well. The workers first made wooden boards to the sides of the trenches and added crushed stones, gravel, into the trenches. The wooden boards acted as walls, surrounding the gravel and forming what construction workers call the foot. The gravel was also spread around the entire ground floor of the building with the help of wheelbarrows. As for the base, they placed long steel bars which were also held together by steel rods into the gravel. Once the steel rods were placed, the trenches were completely filling with concrete, as well as the building ground floor of the building. Finally, they used the screeds to smoothen the cement on the building floor, making it look even. With 8,500 workers doing this, after 2.5 hours, they had completely laid down the foundation for the entire industry. With this many people, they should have been done in 1 hour. But since it was their first time, it was expected for them to be slow. Now they had to wait for 2 days for the cement to cure and harden, before removing those wooden walls and beams around the cement. Keske. Time was money. There was no way that he would let the workers do nothing within these 2 days. Might as well start constructing the other industries. Landon needed them to go to the other construction sites, to also place the foundation for their buildings and tanks. Just as he was about to leave, he spotted 2 loading trucks heading their way. It was probably 12:30 lunchtime. The men removed their gloves and aided in offloading the cooking pots from the trucks. There were 20 pots and 20 cooks waiting to serve the dishes to them. There were also 20 other cooks, who were tasked in handing out plastic plates and cups to the men. The cooks looked very professional. They had white elastic hair wraps on their heads, transparent gloves on their hands, and wore clean white plastic aprons. There were also several drums filled with water that were offloaded as well. The drums had 4 outlet taps at their bottoms, so that the men could easily get themselves water if they were thirsty. Break time was 1 hour long, so the men had to manage their time wisely. It was better to eat fast, so as to relieve yourself if one needed to. The men formed 20 lines, as they hurriedly took their food as sat on the grass. Landon didn't want them to eat on the construction site, so the trucks gathered just by the side of the construction site markings. Of course, as king, Landon didn't need to wait online as his food was automatically brought over to him. The privileges of power. 1:30 p.m., lunchtime was over. The men loaded all the bags of cement and other materials and equipment into different trucks. Once they were done, they headed out to the second construction site. By 2:15 p.m., they arrived and only used 1 hour 15 minutes to completely layer the foundation for all buildings and tanks on the site. They packed up again and were on their way to the final construction site. By 5:10 p.m., they were done with layering the foundation for all buildings and tanks on site. All the workers were working in the day shift and had spent 8 hours on the job, so by 5:30 p.m., they were required to call it quits for the day. With only 20 more minutes left before closing time, Landon had the men gather up all the tools and drive back to the construction company. Tomorrow, he would focus on installing the iron net-like fences around the sites, since they had to wait for 2 days before the cement completely hardened. For the fences, Landon wanted them to be like regular prison fences that had barbed wires at the top. In future, the barbed wires would definitely be able to electrocute those who try to sneak in. Landon wasn't taking any chances with anybody. In future, without your badge, access card, or pass, don't even dream of seeing the inside of the industry. If someone lost their access cards or pass, someone would immediately come over and verify if they worked there or not. All spies would be electrocuted, period. Royal Palace, the capital of Arcadina. My king, right now the first prince and 7 other city lords are the only ones to arrive the capital to take their assignments. The second and third princes should get back here in a week or 2. And by the 2nd week of August, all the other city lords from far away should arrive as well. Once everyone arrives, they will all move out together towards the different cities under attack. Minister Tawny said, "Good. Has City Lord Shannon arrived yet?" King Barn asked. "My esteemed king, he should arrive in August." "Ha ha ha. When he arrives, make sure that he sees me before going out on the mission. I need to give him a personal assignment on my behalf. Yes, my king. King Barn looked at his trusted knight and signaled for him to come forward. Summon Princess Jeanette and Captain Anthony here. Eli's old courtyard, the capital of Arcadina. My lord, I think those old ministers are trying to use this war to the advantage of your brothers. My lord, should we get secret guards to protect you? Xerius asked. Right now, Eli had made his way into the capital so as to receive his assignments. Eli stood in his old courtyard and smiled. Why worry about those tiny insects so such? But my lord, I think that they will try to assassinate you again if you don't go prepared, Xerius replied. Who says that we wouldn't be prepared? Do I need to use my brain to deal with these buffoons? The biggest setback is that we can't besiege Baymard. Xerius' eyes lit up. Because of this border war, Eli might not be able to get that Baymard under his control until next year. The official date to head out to the border is on the 15th of August. It will take 2 months to go down south to the border. And once he completed his mission, his father would probably request that he stay there for at least 4 months, so as to make sure that those pesky Diaphorus knights don't bring more reinforcements to take back the land. After 4 months, he would have to take another 2 months to head back to the capital, so as to receive his rewards and have a parade as the crown prince of Arcadina. After the whole ordeal, he would need another 3 weeks to go back to his territory, before attempting to attack Baymard again. And one should not forget that Baymard is 4 months away from his territory. That's almost 11 months by horse travel, before he could successfully attack Baymard. At most, he could only start his operations by July next year. Apart from Baymard, that damn ghostly prince keeps giving me sleepless nights. The fact that I don't really know his next moves really irks me. Eli exclaimed while squeezing the life out of the orange in his hand. My lord, do you think that while we are away, he would finally make his move? Xerius asked inquisitively. Just before he was about to answer, someone knocked on his door. After 2 minutes, a thick, curvy, beautiful woman walked in and sat on a chair beside Eli. This woman was his mother. Little Eli, once you head out, make sure nothing fails. The sooner you get back, the earlier we can officially start with our plans, said Queen Sarah. Mom, everything is ready. Don't worry. Although this trip was a little unexpected, it won't stop our plans. Good. The sooner we kill that bastard, the sooner I will be at peace, Queen Sarah said with an evil glint in her eyes. At this point, she too hated King Barn. Hell has no fury like a woman's scorn. When she was still young, she was officially engaged to him and was deeply infatuated with him. He said that he would love her till they grew old together. Granted, she would always kill and torture those women that claimed to love him too. But did that really make her a bad person? She loved him like crazy and would sometimes ask her father, who was a minister within the court, to find out his schedule so she could accidentally bump into him here and there. If he ever showed interest to any girl other than her, for sure that girl wouldn't last a week. And if the girl came from a wealthy family, she would hire gangs to rape the girl and destroy her public image. Didn't she do it all for love? Wasn't that what love was? Not even 3 months after his marital vow of evaluating love for her, he cheated on her and married another woman. He said that she seduced him and was the one who did all the work in the bedroom. Of course she believed him. How could her love be interested in that slut? But a few months before she was to go into labor, that slut had the nerve become pregnant as well. And 2 days before her labor date, another slut had married into the royal family. And another year after that, a cheap common maid had taken advantage of her drunk husband and gotten pregnant with a bastard child. Why were all these women coming for her man? But she quickly realized that the first 2 harlots were much wiser than the last one. So she decided to first eliminate the last slut. But who would have thought that Chief Commander Lucius would always protect that *****h. All these damn ***************yes made her sick. To make matters worse, it had been 6 whole years since he last touched her. She tried everything, from the latest plum makeup, to hiring street harlots to teach her the game of seduction, to acting like a pampered princess. What else was she to do? And to top it all off, she is a woman that needed and craved for satisfaction as well. She wasn't asking for it much. Even once a year was a good deal to her at this point. Her husband could have many women, but she couldn't? If she ever found pleasure from any other man, she was sure that she would be locked up in a prison-like courtyard for all eternity. Over the years, the bastard had gotten ordinary street harlots to please him in bed, yet he refused to even look at her. Sometimes, she could hear their screams of pleasures all the way from her courtyard. It felt like torture. 9 whole years of loneliness. She just wanted to be touched. She had been dying inside for ages now. Every time she tried to talk to him about it, he would make up an excuse and run away from her. There were times that he would ask her if she was a dog, because according to him, only dogs went in heat. Out of those 9 lonely years, she had spent 3 years begging for his attention daily. But on the 4th year, her love for him had completely died. She had overheard him talk to a young maid, promising her love and riches if she could sleep with him. He even said that he couldn't stand her because she was fat. Her fat. Ha ha ha. It was on that day that she finally realized how stupid she had been. To think that this was the man that she killed countless women for. Since then, all her love for him instantly turned to hate. And as years went by, her murderous side began to take over her mind. He had to die. Royal Palace, capital of Arcadina. Jeanette Barn walked around the royal garden with her maids, while waiting for her father to summon her. She had been waiting for the past 1 hour now, and her father was still in a meeting with the ministers. As she walked further into the garden, she immediately spotted her dear little sister. Carrie Barn was walking towards a large fish pond, a few feet away from her. There were also several knights, and even some barons in the gardens. People usually stayed in the royal garden when they were waiting for their turn to see King Barn. Little sister, you're here too? Let's walk along together, okay? Speak of the devil. Carrie Barn turned around and saw Jeanette running towards her. Her face immediately scrunched up, and she looked like someone who just ate dog poop. Jeanette sneered as she hurriedly made her way towards Carrie. This little sister of hers already had a bad reputation in the capital, thanks to her. Her White Lotus act had always made everyone side with her, while they in turn despised Carrie. What do you want? Carrie asked with a frown on her face. Jeanette stopped in her tracks and immediately started acting as if she was sobbing, while choking on her fake tears. She really looked pitiful. What man wouldn't feel touched while seeing a gentle angel crying? All the knights around the area immediately felt pain seeing her like this. Little sister, how can you talk to me like that? If I did something to anger you, please forgive me. I just wanted to spend more time with you, little sis. The scene was really heartbreaking. The moronic knights who had seen this immediately looked at Carrie with disapproving gazes, while rushing over to Jeanette's side. Princess Carrie, must you be so heartless? Yeah, why must you make her cry? Underfer. The knights spoke out as they saw their goddess, Princess Jeanette, in tears. They even forgot that they were reprimanding another princess who could order for their deaths. Come on, little sister, you're almost making it too easy for me now. Hey, Jeanette thought. As the men comforted her, Jeanette continued to sob even more loudly. Please everyone, don't misunderstand my little sister. She was just having a bad day, that's why she talked to me in that manner. She's really a good person and not arrogant and rude like what you all think. All the men looked at Princess Jeanette as if she were some divine being. They all thought that the princess had a heart of gold. To them, Princess Jeanette was pure, saintly, kind, and innocent. She looked like someone whom anyone could easily bully. Little sister, please, don't punish or kill the knights for talking back at you. If you want to hurt someone, hurt me instead. I will willingly offer up my life for any of them. Jeanette said as she fell to her knees. The knights felt touched and started defending the princess even more. Carrie was almost at her boiling point. When did she say that she would kill them? What bullsh****? Jeanette? Offer her life for them. What a joke. She knew that if she made a move against these knights, the entire empire would go in an uproar. She would become the most vicious woman of all time. It's not like she cared or anything, but before her and Eli's plans went through, she couldn't afford to affect his position as the crown prince. For now, most of the citizens wanted Eli to step down from his position as the crown prince. but they were scared to take action. If a large-scale revolt really happened, the citizens would carry fire torches and march up to the palace, demanding for Eli's removal. The capital alone had 37 million people living in it. Sure, there were knights, gangs, and assassins mixed in the group, but the peasants were still quite large in number. No matter what, all the nobles and knights under her and Eli couldn't possibly protect themselves if a large-scale revolt actually happened. Imagine millions of people standing outside the palace walls with torches and other weapons. Even if their father assisted, it still wouldn't count as much. Fortunately for Carrie and Eli, the citizens had not realized the power that they held. What would happen if they decided to team up against them? No one would stand a chance then. For now, they only did small protests in the market areas. But who could really predict the future? These people still feared the nobles, especially King Barn. Their king had killed people when he was displeased, as well as when anyone wanted to go against him. Their king ruled like a tyrant. He was a dictator. The reason why they even had the courage to protest in the marketplaces was because Prince Connor and James promised that they would protect them from King Barn's wrath. King Barn could easily send out his men to make things difficult for them, or murder their families. Most of them were just ordinary peasants who had never fought a day in their lives. But since Connor and James were their king's sons, the gullible citizens easily believed them. They wholeheartedly entrusted their safeties to them and started protesting against Eli's position. Because of Connor and James' heroic acts, the people were even more convinced with their choice and actions. Previously, they liked Eli, as he always seemed sweet and kind, and he also looked somewhat innocent. But lately, they had been hearing all sorts of rumors about him. It was said that he enjoyed killing and raping women during his free time. Apparently, Eli had murdered multiple women after he was done sleeping with them. It was also said that he had always been jealous of his brothers and had tried to assassinate them several times. Obviously, these rumors were spread by Connor and James, but the people were like sheep. They just followed a shepherd. Once something had circulated for a while, it would become a fact in their hearts. They truly believed these rumors because Eli had never bothered to prove his innocence. So it must definitely be true. And to top it all off, Carrie, as the most vicious woman in the empire, was Eli's sister. The people now believed that the apple didn't fall far from the tree. How could such a cruel man be their king? Carrie looked at her White Lotus sister coldly. What AB*********? And just before she was about to defend herself, a guard came over informing Jeanette that their father wanted to see her. Jeanette hurriedly left, giving Carrie no time to make an explanation. As Carrie watched her White Lotus sister leave, she knew that what had happened here would definitely spread throughout the entire capital. "I'll get you back for this slut. Just you wait." Jeanette walked into the large throne room and immediately spotted Captain Anthony Martinez, standing in front of her father. As she looked at him, her heart couldn't help but shiver. 8 months ago, she had come across Anthony's stunning sword skills in the annual knightly tournament. He was so handsome, strong, and had a heroic charm about him. What a dangerous man. Just looking at him, she was sure that he had successfully impregnated her eyes. Wasn't it a crime for someone to look that good? Anthony was the son of Minister Golem Martinez, so she knew that marrying him wouldn't be a problem, since he was a noble. Hence, she schemed her way into his life and into his heart. For months ago, they had officially started dating. And today, her father had called them over to announce that they would be officially engaged, and their wedding would take place before the end of the year. Although she hadn't known him for a long time, Jeanette was sure that he was the one. That's why she had begged and pleaded with her father to rush along the marriage. She was 19 years old, and in this era, people married about this age. They would get engaged at 10 or 11 and get married at 17 or maximum 23. Above 23, you were considered as a problematic woman who no one wanted. Men would be very wary of you and might use you as a side chick. Most women above 23 became desperate and ended up marrying as second wives to elderly rich men. For some reason, her mother had been against all the suitors that previously wanted to be engaged with her. Her mother had said that she would only accept the best of the best for Jeanette. That's why Anthony was the only one that got an approval. He was a noble, young, had outstanding achievements in the army, and was sought after by almost all girls in the capital. After their father had dismissed both of them, she decided to see him off, as they walked hand in hand with each other. "Are you happy?" 2 days had already passed, and the concrete had successfully hardened. Within these 2 days, the men had been installing those iron net prison fences around the site. So far, they had only succeeded in completely fencing the back and the sides of the water and sewage treatment plant. Landon kept the front open so that the trucks could move in and out of the site freely. 9 a.m. Landon had the men remove all the wooden boards, molds, and rails that were previously placed around each would-be building on the construction site. Today, they had to focus on constructing the first floors of every building on the construction site. Landon again demonstrated what they were supposed to do, and once they had grasped the concept, he decided to have them start on their own. He also tasked 500 workers with mixing the cement to form concrete and wheeling them over towards each building on the site. The rest of the 8,000 workers crowded around all the buildings' sites, ready for work. The concrete had hardened and had successfully glued the steel rods firmly to the building floors. And although these steel rods already indicated all corners and rooms on the first floor, it was still important to make sure that the walls were straight and not bent. That's why Landon had the men tie ropes between each rod, so as to accurately form straight lines within the buildings. Landon listened to the workers as they went about trying to outline the buildings. "The rope is slanted. I think we should connect these 2 rods. I don't think that we need to tie the rope between these 2 rods. It should be between the other 2. "Ah, you're right. The floor plan given by His Highness shows that this space between the rods is a door. We need to tie the ropes only between the rods that would be turned into walls. What about the parts where His Highness wrote hallway? I remember that His Highness said that the hallway is also like a passageway or corridor." "That's true. I remember that I wrote it down on my notes. Thanks for the reminder." "Yeah, thanks. To think that I actually forgot about it. I need to go home and revise more on it. Thank you for explaining these things to me. I just got here 4 days ago, so I have no idea what most of this stuff means. But now, I believe that I have a little more understanding towards this. Don't worry. Once you keep working and attending your school lectures, you too will get it. It's actually not that hard." Underfer. The men continued to chat and learn from each other as the work progressed on. When they were done, it was finally time to start creating the interior and exterior walls. The men used those ropes as their rulers and started stacking up the cement blocks. The men laid out the concrete on the floors along the ropes and placed the cement blocks on the concrete. Just like that, they kept stacking up the blocks on one another with the use of concrete. Landon thought that the men looked extremely funny. Imagine a long line of people waiting to have access into a club. That's how they looked as they worked around and inside each building. They were packed like tiny sardines as they went about their work. Each person just had 1 foot of working space in front of them. Most plants back on Earth, for example power plants, provided energy for an entire province or at least 3 or 4 cities at once. Hence their sizes were bigger. For example, the Palo Verde plant in Arizona, USA, provided energy to Los Angeles, San Diego, Tucson, and many more Californian metropolitan areas. The same could be said for 80% of industrial plants back on Earth. For Landon's case, he was just providing for Baymard alone. That's why Baymard's industrial plants didn't need to be so massive. Hence, although he made 500 men mix the concrete, he still felt like 8,000 workers were really a lot for a normal-size plant. Once the men had stacked up to 1 meter high, the men used the iron bridge ladders to continue on. The first floor was going to be a high-ceiling floor, so Landon needed it to reach at least 3 meters tall. The iron bridge ladders could hold up to 3 people at once, and resembled those ladders that window cleaners used back on Earth. Landon then divided the men into groups of 6. 3 people would stand on the ladders, while the other 3 would be on the ground. 2 out of the 3 men on the ground would aid in giving those on the ladders cement blocks and buckets filled with concrete, while the 3rd person would keep an eye on the ladder footing, so as to ensure the safety of those on top. Again, 2 out of 3 workers on the ladders would continue stacking the walls, while the other one be in charge of collecting the buckets of cement and blocks from those on the ground. The work went steady, and by closing time, the first floor of 75% of the buildings had been successfully done. Now they had to wait for 2 days again, for the concrete to completely harden before they could successfully form the second floors. Of course, for the next 2 days, once the men completed the first floor of the buildings left, Landon had them start constructing the first floor walls for the other 2 sites. Honestly, Landon was getting ticked off with this damn cement hardening stuff. Like, why couldn't it just dry down after several hours? Why wait for days? He needed this industries built fast. Chop, chop. Time was money. But since he was doing all the plant sites at once, his irritation about the matter lessened. And just like that, Landon spent most of his days with the construction team. Empire of Arcadina, secret hideout. William wore his boots, tied his hair, and placed his sword in his sheath. Mona rushed up to him and gently held his checks with her palms as she fought back the urge to cry. Her son was a man now, so it was really inappropriate for her to always cry or hold him back. He had responsibilities and a duty to fulfill. Little William, make sure to stay safe. And if you are ever trapped or discovered, make a run for it and don't try to be heroic. Heroes usually die faster. Odin walked up behind Mona and placed his right hand on William's shoulder. It's been almost 2 months now, and that Slytherin bastard should be making his way over to Sangria City. And in another 3 weeks, he should be arriving. You need to make sure that you get to Sangria before he does. Once you successfully get through the city undetected, Captain Remlock would be waiting for you at the Quincy Inn. And like your mother said, if anything goes wrong, run. Your mother and I can live our lives without having to fulfill our desire for revenge. But without you, there would be no point living for us to live on. Be safe. Dad, Mom, aren't I the ghostly prince? Since when did I ever lose to anyone? Rest assured, I will return back to you all safe. And besides, I'm no hero. The soldiers were sleeping and snoring peacefully within their sleeping units. Every military dormitory had 4 long vertical stacks of straw, 2 on the left side of the room and 2 on the right side of the room. There were also several iron lockers that were placed all around each wall in the room. The lockers resembled the gym lockers back on Earth, but each locker was 2 meters tall and 1 meter wide. All of the lockers had locks on them and also had number tags placed on them. The center of the rooms were kept straw-free, creating a large corridor space for morning roll call. The stacks of straw on each side were separated by a 2-meter gap, leaving the center space to 4 meters wide. Some rooms had less stacks, while others had more. It basically depended on the dimensions of the rooms. In this era, most peasants slept on straws, grass, leaves, and other plants that were deemed comfortable. Previously, Landon had wanted to place the straws in fabrics to make mattresses. But the men complained that loose heaps were more comfortable to sleep on, compared to compact ones. When straws were forced and pressed into cloth, they ended up poking people when they slept. Some of the straws might even poke out of the fabric, giving the straw mattresses a spike-like feeling to them. Hence Landon placed long vertical stacks of straw in every room. The straw was changed every 3 weeks by all the soldiers in each room, as per the room roster. In future, there would be bunk beds for them. But for now, the straw was their best alternative. After all, that was what they were used to anyway. And as for the blankets, each soldier had a 2-meter piece of cloth to cover themselves up at night. For now, there were no pillows, since the men preferred so sleep without stone pillows. And Landon didn't blame them. Who would want to sleep on rocks or pebbles? In this era, if peasants were really keen on pillows, they would place several pebbles and dried seaweeds into a piece of fabric and call it a pillow. More like a torturing device. Would that give you serious neck injuries? Anyway, each room had a minimum of 30 soldiers residing in them. Since no one was in the rank of drill sergeant, Landon had the warrant officers look after the new recruits. Drill sergeants were those ranked in the enlisted ranks between sergeants and master sergeants. Everyone in the military fort was either overqualified, warrant soldiers and above, or underqualified, new recruits. That's why the warrant soldiers were the best options for now. Each room had a warrant officer that would be in charge of waking up the new recruits and supervising their morning training. It was 6 a.m. In Kirsten's room, there were 40 soldiers sound asleep as they waited for a new day to begin. Each vertical stack had 10 soldiers on them. Fayup, the whistleblower. Get up, get up, get up, get up. You all have 5 minutes to be fully dressed and assembled at the center of the rooms. Warrant Officer Justin yelled out. Kirsten immediately jumped up and rushed towards his locker. Kirsten had just arrived this July and was still not used to all the new routines that were done in Baymard. He had always wanted to be a knight growing up, and when he was 7, he started training as a page in his hometown. By the age of 13, his town was attacked by a fierce blood gang, and his grandparents died while protecting him and his sister. His grandparents and all the other adults tried to stall the gang, while him, his sister, and all the other children and some adults fled for their lives. His mother died during childbirth, and his father died while he was out hunting in the forest. All he had were his sister and his grandparents, but when he fled with his 6-year-old sister at the time, he knew that he would never see his grandparents again. He had lived the next 3 years of his life begging, doing petty thievery to feed his little sister, and working as a loader in a shipping dock in Fringa City, within the empire of Terike. It was there that fate finally decided to smile on him. While he was loading items onto a ship, he had overheard a man, presumably the owner of the ship, ask about where he could get refugees and buy slaves within the city. Several days later, the man brought a lot of people by the dock and started reassuring them that where they were going would be a happy place with equal pay and good times. Although he was intrigued, he still felt that it was a scam. Ever since he had fled with his sister, people had bullied him and treated him like a piece of horse ***. He would get beaten up by the sailors on board most of the ships while he was loading items, or even have dirty moped water thrown on his face when his colleagues were having a bad day. He had persevered through all the torture because of his sister. She was all he had, and he would at least try to make her life as comfortable as possible. But now, he had heard that there was such a place that would treat him with respect, and apparently even catered to the poor. Bullsh ***. Wasn't this just a typical slavery scam? But then again, something in his heart kept saying, what if? What if what the man said was true? What if he could really become a knight and earn enough money for his sister and him? And even if it was a scam, was he not already treated like shit where he was? Although it was risky, he finally gathered enough courage and begged the man to add him and his little sister to the list. And the rest was history. Once he arrived, he immediately noticed that this city in particular had soldiers and not knights. As he was already 16, he immediately volunteered for the army, since that had always been a lifelong dream of his. Within these 2 weeks, he had also realized that everything that His Highness Landon promised them was true. He made new friends, attended lectures, had enough food to eat, and passed his days in peace. His sister was also happy with her life, and lived in the estate with all the other slaves and refugees. Since he was in the army and couldn't live in the refugee/slave estate, his 9-year-old sister had to live with one other child and one caretaker in single large room. So she was fine and well taken care of daily. Plus, during his free time, he would make stops to her estate to check up on her regularly. He loved his time here in Baymard, especially the army experience. TSK. To think that he actually hesitated on giving up this golden opportunity. He also made up his mind that he would never betray Baymard, because they had given back his dignity as a man back, taken care of his only sister, and fulfilled his dream to be a knight. Or should he say soldier? Plus, he had already made an oath and signed documents of confidentiality and loyalty towards Baymard. Time's up. Everybody lined up in straight vertical lines at the center of the room. Some of the men had only one leg of boots on, while others didn't even have their shirts on, just their pants. Over the past 2 weeks, the new recruits had learned that if anyone was even a second late to line up, the entire group would face punishment. For example, if someone from the left corner of the room lined up late, all those who slept in that corner would have to do push-ups and frog jumps as punishment. Landon did this to encourage teamwork. If you get up and see the person next to you sleeping, wake their ass up. No one could win a fight or a battle alone. After all, the slogan of the fort is all for one, one for all. What did I tell you all about looking forward? Keep your head straight. Karsten's heart started beating faster. He knew that he had F*** ket up today. Warrant Officer Justin came so close to him that if someone accidentally pushed him forward, they would definitely kiss each other. But he couldn't be fooled. He had been here long enough to know that when the warrant officers got close to anyone like this, it was nothing good to write about. sh***, he thought. Private, where's your shirt? Do you think that you look sexy? Do you want us to admire you? Is that it? No, sir. Then why is your shirt not on your body? Karsten felt like crying. Why did he lock his locker last night? He usually kept it open, so as not to slow down his pace in the mornings. Luckily, Warrant Officer Justin quickly left him and picked on the guy who had only his left boot on. 2 minutes of Warrant Officer Justin's yells passed, and it was now 6:10 a.m. Everyone, it's time to head on out. By 6:20, you should all be in the fields. Those who aren't fully dressed should get dressed and meet us on the field. From there, you will receive your punishments. Now, everybody else, move out. Karsten's heart sank even further. Damn his forgetfulness. He had been doing good since he got here. And now, this one slip-up caused him punishment. He truly felt like crying, but he also knew that there was nothing he could do about it. It was indeed his slip-up, and he had to take full responsibility for his actions. As everyone else left, Karsten wore his shirt and dashed out like lightning towards the field. He quickly arrived a few seconds before go time and stood in line. Safe, he thought. All the recruits trained together, hence all the warrant officers in charge of them were on the field too. Everybody drop down and give me 20. Karsten immediately dropped down and started doing his push-ups. As he continued on, another warrant officer came over and inspected his form. Arms apart, private. You will not get results by doing it that way. He immediately adjusted his stance and persisted on. Listen up. It's time to begin the jog. You will all follow the person in front of you. You will all keep up and not slack off. Now everyone, begin the jog. Karsten followed the recruit in front of him and jogged around the field 6 times. As they jogged, they also sang number songs that surprisingly keep them motivated. Plus, it was kind of like they were doing math at the same time. Although they didn't know intense math, they had all dealt with money before, so it wasn't that hard to count. 3 silver coins plus 10 silver coins gave 13 silver coins. Do 1, 2, 3, 10, 1, 2, 3, 11, 1, 2, 3. That kept them moving forward, and they finally ended up jogging back to their original positions. From there they did pull-ups, sit-ups, leg lounges, high kicks, squats, frog walks, and finally frog jumps. By 7:30 a.m., they were done. Of course, those who previously didn't completely dress up, or came late to the general assembly on the fields or in their dormitories, stayed back to receive their punishments. Karsten ran another 2 rounds around the field and did 10 more push-ups. No slacking off, private. Keep up. He was worn out as hell. The pain he felt throughout his body was really exhausting. He swore to never do the same mistake he did again. Never. By 7:50 a.m., he was done and quickly dashed away to get his bath. Bath time was from 7:40 to 8:20 a.m., so he was already 10 minutes late. He quickly freshened up and still came 5 minutes late for breakfast. Breakfast was also from 8:30 to 9:10 a.m., while classes started at 9:30 a.m. He first attended his military lectures on strategies, cannon operations, and safety measures, as well as a device called a gun. And after his 12:30 lunch, he made his way at 1:20 p.m. to the Baymard Public School. Today he just had Math 1 and Pino 1 in his schedule, while tomorrow he had only Math 2. At 3:50, he was back to the military fort and had 1 hour and 10 minutes to rest before going for his gun-firing session. In May, Landon had asked him to create the semi-automatic pistols for the military. And in June, only the warrant officers, the captains, major generals, and of course Lucius practiced with them. Now that the older soldiers understood how to use them, this July, Landon had the officers train and teach these new recruits how to fire the weapons. Of course, Landon labeled the guns as well. This first gun was called a Baymard M.A1. In Karsten's schedule, He had gun firing practice on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, as well as his obstacle courses. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, he also had classes, sword fighting sessions, and close combat sessions. On Saturdays, he only had rock climbing lessons in the lower region, while on Sundays, he had nothing at all and was basically free as a bird. Of course, every day, he would have morning training routines with the warrant officers, just as he did today. He rested, chatted with his friends, and when it was 5 p.m., he got to the field and held his gun, like he had been doing for the past few days. So far, no one was allowed to keep the guns. After training, all the guns were counted, collected, and stored back in the fort. Aim for the eyes. Go! Kirsten looked at the large pieces of paper 50 feet away and fired his shots. The paper had an outline of a man drawn on it. There were also several marked lines within the image. Their task was to aim for the inner outline on the man drawn on the paper. Pow! 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 When all the recruits had finished shooting, they unarmed themselves by placing the guns on the ground. Only then did the warrant officers on duty reach forward towards their shot papers. Kirsten looked at his large sheet of paper and was disappointed in himself. Although he got the man's nipples, he was still far away from the man's head. They did several other shots, and by 6:20 p.m., they were done. Wah! You're so lucky. At least you got the nipples. I got the man's belly. Damn! I got his right arm. Would that really do any damage? Sigh. I got his junk. I think the man must be in serious pain. Ha 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 ha. They all laughed out as they made their way to their 6:30 class. Next up, obstacle courses. Kirsten and his friends ran and jumped on thin logs of wood that were surrounded by mud. The logs were inclined upwards and attached to an even larger logs of wood. Kirsten jumped on the log and nearly slipped. Crap! He steadied himself and continued forward on the inclined logs, and finally arrived on several larger logs of wood suspended 2 meters in the air by iron bars. As he was about to move, the person in front of him slipped and fell into the mud. Plop! A warrant officer quickly told the recruit, who fell to go back at the end of the line and start all over again. Kirsten focused, passed through several log bridges, and arrived back at ground level. He quickly crawled through several large pipes and made his way to another set of inclined logs suspended 3 meters high, which led to a tall wooden post. Once at the top, he quickly used the ropes on the sides to slide down. Once on ground level, he quickly ran towards another 3-meter-tall iron bar wall, which looked like the doors of a giant medieval prison cell. He put his legs and hands in the holes on the wall and climbed over the wall, making his way over the fall wall. As he progressed, he became more fatigued and stressed. He crawled in sand under several wooden logs, jumped through tires, and almost fell into mud several times. He was now at the final stage of the obstacle course. He crawled on ropes trying to get from one wooden post to another. And when he reached the end, he let go of the rope and lost his footing. Plop! Get to the back of the line and start over again. Kirsten wanted to cry. Why did I suddenly lose my footing? I'm now covered in mud. My hands and shoes are all slippery. There's no way that I wouldn't fall back again. He really cursed his luck. By 7:20 p.m., the session was over, and he quickly headed with his friends to take his bath. Hehehe. I saw your fall, man. Truly tragic. Don't mock me, all right? By 8:30 everyone had dinner. And by 9:30 p.m., he went around the fort with his friends while talking about their day. And by 11 p.m., it was lights out. Time to sleep. He was really exhausted, but at the same time happy. He only hoped that tomorrow would be just as exciting as today was. This was his experience. It had been 2 weeks now, and Landon had been aiding the construction workers at the sites. Today, Landon left the workers early because he had a meeting to attend. At 3 p.m., Landon headed over to the alchemy industry to have his weekly meetings with all the supervisors and overseers. Every week, Landon would use any room in any of the industries for the meetings. He would rotate between all industries so as to be fair. Last week, the meeting took place at the food industry. The week before that, it was held at the construction industry. And now it was at the alchemy industry. All the overseers and supervisors were supposed to bring in their weekly reports indicating their progress compared to the prior week, and a pie chart which showed their results, as well as how many products were currently in stock. They were also supposed to present all the problems and difficulties the workers faced within each industry. So far, Baymard had several sections within each industry. A food industry, Black Small Square Department F1, actual farming. Black Small Square Dep F2, storage and distribution. Black Small Square Dep F3, seasoning and spice making. Black Small Square Dep F4, cooking oil. Black Small Square Dep F5, vinegar. Black Small Square Dep F6, butter. Black Small Square Dep F7, taking care of goats, chickens, etc. Alchemy/chemistry industry. Black Small Square Dep A1, gunpowder. Black Small Square Dep A2, paint. Black Small Square Dep A3, chalk making. Black Small Square Dep A4, chemical products like chlorine, etc. Black Small Square Dep A5, storage and distribution of goods. Black Small Square Dep A6, oil production. Black Small Square Dep A7, ink making. Black Small Square Dep A8, soap making. A construction industry. Black Small Square Dep C1, mining. Black Small Square Dep C2, glass making. Black Small Square Dep C3, warfare weapons, guns, cannons. Black Small Square Dep C4, storage and distribution of goods. Black Small Square Dep C5, everything rubber. Black Small Square Dep C6, in charge of building and fixing all construction equipment, creating electrical gadgets and heavy industrial machines, as well as other building fixtures. Black Small Square Dep C7, cement making. Black Small Square Dep C8, wood cutting. Black Small Square Dep C9, everything plastic. Black Small Square Dep C10, pipe making. Black Small Square Dep C11, paper making. Black Small Square Dep C12, everything porcelain and marble. Black Small Square Dep C13, furniture making like bed frames. Black Small Square Dep C14, construction workers. The room was set up like a lecture hall, with all the supervisors and overseers facing a podium at the front. Everyone quieted down, and the meeting began. Chief Wiggins, since we are at your industry this time, we will start with you. The floor is yours. Chief Wiggins and the 16 supervisors within his industry came forward with samples of all the products created within the week, excluding chemicals, guns, and gunpowder, of course. For today, everything else basically looks and has the same texture and results as last week's products. All except the soap. Landon and everyone else nodded as they listened to Chief Wiggins. Last week, the soap was still effective, but it really didn't lather up as much as Landon expected. Apparently, they didn't add enough sodium lauryl sulfate into their products. But this week, it looked like they had successfully done the corrections and came prepared. As Wiggins spoke, the supervisors placed several bowls of water on 3 large tables. I would like everyone to come up and wash their hands in these separate bowls of water, using the soaps. Those seated rushed to the tables and started washing their hands. There were different colored bars of soap, placed by the side of each basin. Wow, this is what His Highness meant by lathering up? I have to agree, it makes me feel like my hands are really dirt-free. Each bar even has a name and number carved on it. Ah, it smells like lavender. My wife would surely like this one. Mine smells very manly. Can it be used for doing laundry and bathing? Of course. That's what Chief Wiggins said in his last week report. I think the B3 soap is the one used for doing laundry. It really is an improvement compared to last week's soaps. Underfer. Once everyone sat down, Chief Wiggins continued his presentation. As he spoke, the supervisors got all the bowls of water and threw them outside the windows. They also gathered up all the soap bars and cleaned the tables with rags. Chief Wiggins spoke about the overall success rate within his industry, as well as the few issues and problems encountered within the manufacturing processes. Later on, the supervisors spoke about the issues all the workers faced at work. At the end of their presentation, everyone rose up and clapped for them. Brilliant! They had really tried their best compared to last week. Those from the alchemy industry all blushed and smiled as they saw the positive response from everyone. And to top it off, His Highness rose up too. Last week, His Highness didn't rise up but still clapped for them. This week, they saw him standing, smiling, clapping, and even nodding several times to them. All their hard work had paid off. Now it was time for the construction industry to take over the presentation. All the products were same compared to last week, except the new tables, porcelain plates, marble cups, pens, pencils, plastic rulers, and paper. Wow, I didn't know that paper could be colored blue. Overseer Tim really outdid himself this time. Check out this pen. The ones before had clear casings, but this one has a grayish casing and looks very cool. Look, when I press on the top, the pen head shoots out at the bottom. This is the best invention so far. Pwee! What do you know? Can't you see that slick glass table over there? The table legs are made out of wood, but the top part is made of glass. Glass! Do you think that a pen can compare to that? I agree, the table is the best. I can't wait for these products to be sold in the stores. They won't be sold now. His Highness said that once house construction starts, then they would be sold. So for now, they can only be stored in big warehouses. But did you see that porcelain plate? It's so artistic and funny. It says, "Go away. Opening hours are closed." Ha ha ha. I need that plate in my life. That should be my new slogan. Every time someone wants to talk to me when I'm eating, I'll just tell them, "Go away. Opening hours are closed." Underfer. The construction industry rounded up, and it was finally time for the food industry to shine.